Okay, well, since we have our last class today on the 9th of September, I thought I'd do a little kind of video just going outlining things we've covered in class in terms of revising for the Media Studies exam, because the exam's not until the 18th, so there's quite a bit of time between now and then. It's something you can revisit over and over again. Now, like we said with the Year 11 Media Studies exam, you're going to see anywhere between 3 and 4 questions. Now, obviously, you need to pick one question, but you'll see that the questions are very, very similar. So in class we talked about the idea of bugging questions. And when we talked about bugging questions, what we really meant by that is that we want to box the command words. So these are the words that tell you what you're actually doing in the essay. Once we do that, we want to underline the keywords about the content of the essay. And then finally we want to glance over it and make some notes on what we need to include. And that includes things like, obviously, the name of the sitcoms and direct evidence in terms of quotations or other facts. Okay, so now if we look back at that question for a moment, instead of boxing, I'm just going to highlight. So the two obviously command words that we're looking for here are discuss and explain. So to discuss something means to examine it in detail and provide both description and explanation. Okay, whereas explaining something is that the reasons why something occurs, or changes, or how it comes to be. So in this case, now that we've boxed those, we want to underline the keywords here. And so obviously we're talking about two significant, I'm just going to bold them there, two significant characteristics. Okay, I'll even highlight them in a different color. Okay, so that's obviously the keyword. We know that the 2 is even capitalized to do so. And we need to explain why the characters have developed over time. Now, you gotta hand it to these examiners. They want to make sure you're answering the right question. They go to the whole point of making sure that you know what to do because they underline things for you and they bold it already. So what you're going to be doing, obviously, you're going to be discussing those two significant characteristics. You're going to explain why those characteristics have developed over time. So we know what the command words are. Now we need to start thinking about, well, if we look at those keywords, we know we got the 2 characteristics. Now we studied 8 of them. So one question might be, well, which characteristics are we going to choose? Well, that really depends on the second part of the question. So the keywords here are talking about 2 characteristics that show us that sitcoms have changed over time. So now when I look at that, I've got to start glancing through things and making some notes. And I think about the 2 that show me things have changed. One, I think, is the ensemble cast. Because if we look at the ensemble casts in Cheers, for instance, it's more male-dominated at the very beginning, and then it begins to incorporate more female. So there's a different blend of characters, a different diversity to it. But you'll notice even then there's no ethnic diversity at all. The same thing is kind of true in Friends. Although now we have an equal balance between women and men, we have very little actual ethnic or sexual orientation diversity anywhere on there. Once we get to that 70s show, we see a little bit in the sense that Fez comes into the picture, and we have basically your non-Caucasian character. And then once we get to the Big Bang Theory, not only do we see a little bit of diversity in terms of the gender, but we also see a little bit more in terms of the ethnic makeup of the group as well. Not to mention that they're focusing on a segment of society that, again, is a little bit different, a little bit more diverse. So ensemble cast is one area we can see the change. And the other area that we can see it is the ongoing storylines. And romantic narrative even. I mean, if we look at the romantic narrative between Sam Malone and Rebecca Howe, I mean, as we mentioned in class, I mean, in today's terms, those things could almost be kind of categorized as sexual harassment. Obviously very geared towards Sam trying to sleep with Rebecca. All things that in today's kind of television would probably be handled a little bit more sensitively. Whereas when we look at, you know, the romantic narratives and continuing on in Friends, that there's quite a bit of those ongoing storylines that show us, you know, the emphasis has been moved away from kind of a more male-dominated viewpoint of the world, having more female characters and telling their stories and their experiences as well, all the way through to The Big Bang Theory. So we've got a lot of kind of changes in the storylines and the romantic narratives that show that it's developed over time. So the first 7 minutes, this little first video here, is all about making sure you understand how to break down that question, that you know what you're doing. You're going to be describing and explaining those two characteristics really, really well. So you're going to explain ensemble casts, what it is, why they're there. You're then going to describe what the ongoing storylines or romantic narratives are all about, how they work in the sitcoms, before you explain some of the reasons why the ensemble casts and the romantic narratives have changed from the 1980s when we started watching Cheers through to the recent late 2010s with The Big Bang Theory.